Well, welcome, Colin. It's great to jump on a call here with you and run through our topic today. I am excited to introduce that we're going to run through like five key ways that Databricks have been really transforming how fintech and kind of modern financial services companies are building out their data and tooling infrastructure.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm excited to dive into this topic. It's one I've been getting very excited about, and yeah, I think there's some real good developments recently in the payments and fintech space that we want to share with more people.
And just for background, Colin, I'm Josh Mearmont with Blue Orange. I'm the founder of the company, but I co-founded with Colin. And Colin
Uh,
is alum out of Capital One. So before you came over, we dragged you out of the financial services space when I know you were thinking a lot about these problems at scale. So it's good to have your
it
brain
was,
on
yes,
this.
good to get back into it fully, and yeah, it's an area that I've been passionate about for a long time. So
So top five things that I would say are kind of like really transformative that kind of the modern data platforms are really enabling. But I would say number one is just thinking about the biggest problem that you have in financial services is around fraud detection and kind of how modern lakehouse architecture are enhancing that. So why don't we set up what are the problem or what is the evolution of the problem that Databricks is addressing?
yeah, I mean, this is a huge problem for any financial services company, but especially thinking about kind of startups in the fintech space and payment space. It's one that they have to come to bear with very quickly in terms of dealing with fraud, and it's many billions of dollars of a problem for every company, in the space. So real-time fraud detection is becoming a capability that everybody requires, and being able to respond quickly and increase the speed with which you can respond to threats is something that companies need to figure out. And Databricks, I think, is one of the people or the companies in the forefront, helping companies take advantage of new streaming capabilities, increase speeds to things like Spark streaming, so that you can have kind of lower latency in terms of processing machine learning models on transaction records and things like that. So real-time processing is something that Databricks has been focusing on forever, but has really been getting awesome at with a lot of the additions they've been making.
How much is, I think there's a lot of this discussion of like a lot of analytic workloads just require kind of batch processing. Obviously there's a lot of native streaming capabilities built into stuff around Databricks. Is fraud kind of one of those areas where like streaming has a lot of value in it? Would you say, is that kind of one of those use
Yeah.
cases that we kind of go to
I
pretty
mean,
quickly?
fraud is kind of like table stakes is streaming. So you need to be able to respond quickly. You need if you're approving a transaction payment that needs to go from one party to another. It's really hard to get that money back in some cases if you've already sent it. So you need to have a low latency response to say, is this going to be fraud or not, and be able to stop those transactions kind of in the spot that they're happening.
Hmm. Yeah, and that makes a lot of sense. And I think so. We're going to tie a bunch of these themes together. So we have 5 points that we're going to see. We're going to keep moving, but I think we're going to figure out a couple other parts of the platform that will tie into some of the solutioning around even some of these fraud use cases. But maybe jumping into kind of our second kind of key feature that we're seeing enhancement on, and I think that's just thinking about you just gave an example of low latency, but thinking about unified data architecture, and particularly for some of the key things that you have, like know your customer and the example you just gave with like money laundering and even compliance. But how are, that second key theme and feature that we're seeing, how is unified data platforms and kind of what data bricks like, Lakehouse and, integrated machine learning and easy deployment and monitoring and Unity catalog with governance, how has that whole ecosystem come together to actually be, 1 + 1 =
Mhm.
3?
It's a great question. So the use cases around KYC and AML are kind of like really benefited by having a centralized data platform where you can have kind of like a centralized place where you define, identity. You have like identity is really a new currency these days, and being able to kind of get aggressive in terms of like how you are authenticating customers and understanding who they are in real time is really kind of something you can only do in a centralized data platform where you have both kind of real time and batch data. You have the ability to kind of generate workflows to respond to customers coming onto your platform, so you can have the KYC checks in real time when you're bringing on new people and not have that friction. And kind of like bringing in a lot of outside data sources and real time data sources into that solution is something that you can do within Databricks, because it supports all those different types of workloads really seamlessly. So it's really a critical piece to kind of the puzzle, being able to have all that data in one place and have it be able to be governed and managed and really of a high quality, which is where kind of stuff like Unity Catalog really shines.
Yeah, I mean, just knowing we've been working in this space for a couple of decades now, it's been a lot of our career focus, and it's really, I think, notably interesting to see the advent of leaner and lighter data catalogs helping kind of these more robust solutions. Like data management has been there's many facets to it, but has been a relatively bloated additional layer on top for many years, just because it's trying to tackle so many different things. And one of the things that we've seen with modern data tooling and Unity Catalog, really, and a couple other tools that we've worked with a number of clients, is seeing a much leaner approach. It still is capable, but it's just because there's two factors, I think, like kind of a transition of how the industry is designing data architecture, and the rise of the things like even just like the features of data lakes, or like lake house evolution in general, when you're seeing like a lot more metadata management. You get a lot more features that come, and then you can take those features and kind of choose to integrate them as you go. I think like Unity Catalog is on by default when you spin up a new
Mm-hmm.
Databricks instance. This isn't something that's an afterthought. It's just
Yeah.
baked right in, and I think that's a major
Well,
shift of what we're
getting
seeing.
lineage and auditability for free is huge. It's something that
Yes.
used to take hundreds of hours of engineering to get set up if you have a lot of legacy systems. So being able to just plug that in, have Unity Catalog take over and provide lineage and provide the auditability that the compliance requirements to satisfy your KYC and AML initiatives require, like just right
Hmm.
off the bat, is really critical. And it also, I agree, the kind of like approach that Unity Catalog has taken. It's like it's not an overbearing kind of user interface or process to get it set up. It's kind of like your engineering team can plug into it and it gets started. Your data analysts and business analysts can start using it and understand the data that's in your system, and it's not something that is kind of bloated from the start. It's just you get going, you start can take advantage of the features right away.
Yeah, that's a pretty amazing value proposition as we see these platforms growing. So moving on to our kind of third big idea that we're seeing, we kicked off with fraud, seeing that kind of benefits of a unified data platform. But let's get kind of the bread and butter of what Databricks thrives at around like advanced analytics, and kind of how does the Databricks platform, effectively be so good at advanced analytics, which are a lot of what we're talking about here. This is
Right.
kind of the entry level for things like know your customer and fraud detection. This is just using kind of a number of machine learning tools. How does Databricks really thrive on that layer?
So I think the remarkable thing about Databricks is that this is where they started, right? As a platform, they were really targeting machine learning use cases and AI as their initial thrust into the market, and being able to have that rich history of like supporting machine learning engineers and data scientists with tools like MLflow, which have become kind of the core standard for how you track experiments and the model lifecycle. Like those being so integrated into the platform, make it kind of a no-brainer choice. But the recent
Mm-hmm.
advancements with, again, Unity Catalog and kind of this unified infrastructure, where you have the same infrastructure for your data engineering and your machine learning tasks. You have everything really tied together in terms of how the governance happens. Like you don't just govern data in Unity Catalog, you govern your models, and any kind of AI assets you're creating are all in one place. So having that kind of unified place to do all this stuff makes it seamless for your teams to collaborate on stuff, makes it kind of a easy for new team members to get on board and know where things are, because it's all in one place and all ready to go. And it's really scalable and able to meet up with the demands of these growing data and payments platforms.
Yeah, I think the piece that like all those areas that you're talking to really thrive, just shine when you're thinking about like these models. Like when you think about data science, it's not on a vacuum. And when you build up a unified environment and like model management like that, you get really good collaboration, especially both not only working on a problem between multiple data scientists, but like and you can spin this out to different teams for or different data sets much easier. I think there's a lot of how that the features we talk about layer on top of each other to ultimately add again that greater than the sum of its parts scenario here. And I think it really shows when you have that kind of full ecosystem capability and connectivity to third party data sources and kind of make it the center point of platforming with governance and all that layer makes it really easy to extend kind of not just the model capability, but the workflow capability.
Yeah, I think some of the
Yeah.
key benefits of that are realized in like time to market for machine learning use cases. So we're seeing across customers like a reduction in time to like market for these use cases in up to 50%, which is crazy. So
it's music to our ears when you get to how long. We're always we're an agency that comes in and helps clients build this. We're always looking for how quick when we get to delivery is one of the
yeah,
metrics we always like to measure ourselves against. So we like that as well.
the value is there. Yeah.
Uh, yes, yeah. So, kind of moving on to our kind of fourth kind of big idea that we're seeing emerging out of why modern data platforms are helping, fintech space. What about the ability to scale? So, Ken, you talked about this in the outset that right out the gate, you're kind of having these big demands in financial services with compliance and, fraud detection. These are just part of doing business. So inherently scale must be a big consider. How do these platforms make that easier?
Yeah, I mean the ability to scale for payments and fintech companies is critical. They're dealing with billions and billions of transactions in some cases, and so we have the real time component, but then also the scale and being able to really scale infinitely with a platform like Databricks or other cloud platforms is table stakes again for kind of the modern era, and being able to to scale not just in terms of being able to handle the workloads, but also to be able to afford the workloads is another key component. So you have with Databricks, I think a really great combination of performance and total cost of ownership that exists in, and we're seeing customers across the payment space be able to take advantage of like lower costs and more efficient workloads on top of Databricks as they're scaling, which is it's kind of like the sweet spot or but like the best of both worlds, right?
Yeah. And there are some stuff like this is one of those areas. There are some areas of like I would say that's probably a lot of where a lot of our clients ask for a lot of support is just making sure it's like, okay, as we scale, are we thinking about optimization? So like with any of these platforms, there are some areas that, do you definitely need to make sure you're considering before you just kind of let an auto scaling occur when you're running across lots of records. So there are some areas that I think, I would just note that when it's done right, it is incredibly effective and you can see these reductions of lower total cost of ownership, like you mentioned. But I'd also say there are important areas of paying attention to that we get asked for a lot of support on as well. And there's also, I'll be candid, like a lot of reputational, historical reputation that we've seen of all the platforms out there, of all cloud, managed cloud providers, you know, letting an auto scale go way up and or not manage clusters efficiently, and you can you can see the tickets to or the costs and the bills to show.
They
But
will take your money. That is for sure. So I think
no question.
using the expertise of people like ourselves to help make sure you're architecting and designing workflows and clusters and scaling policies and everything can save a ton of money down the line.
And I think I'll say this as an aside, but like I do think that this is one of the benefits that we're seeing from general lakehouse architectures and just more interoperability. That all these platforms, that when they know that data can be, you can have a lot more flexibility of where you move a workload because of data sharing is just lower barrier to entry. They have to drive their competition down. So I'm actually incredibly bullish about more interoperability of kind of underlying store, seeing this with like the rise of Iceberg being available on all leading like modern data cloud format. That makes it so you can start selecting workloads for this by market economics. I like that's just going to drive cost of compute down. So I'm really eager for that flexibility moving
Yeah,
forward.
I think choice matters a lot, and having the ability to be open and flexible is one of those things that I love about the Databricks platform. Is interoperability is built in from the start.
Great. Yeah. So moving on, I think we talked a lot about this, but I would say kind of the last key piece that I think really brings us together is talking about you have this, there's two tensions that exist that I think come up. You have, collaboration, which is sharing and ease of access to a system, and security. These are always tension against each other, right? So how does Databricks, or how do these, this modern data platform take approaches to allow for ease of building, the collaboration you need to get good analytics, do streaming insights, make sure you have good fraud detection, do compliance, while making sure that you're not leaking important PII and some of these core considerations.
Mm-hmm. That's a great question. So the again, going back to Unity Catalog, it is the kind of core of a lot of these pieces. But it is that central point of governance, and I think having one central point of governance is really key to having a governance program that can kind of like scale and be become manageable, or be manageable from the start and stay manageable in a lot of cases. So being able to take advantage of kind of like the things built into that for locking down PII, tagging data, masking data, having more fine-grained control over who can see what. That's all managed in that one layer, and I think there's continual investment from Databricks in that, with things like the attribute-based access control coming out recently as well, which is just a great model to think about adopting. But the other part of it is,
huge step up.
A lot of these companies are sharing data with each other, and they need to be able to do that in a way that's secure and again, scalable and auditable. So being able to take advantage of Delta Lake sharing and Databricks clean rooms to do that is a really I think really great addition to the overall scope of what these teams can do in terms of providing governance for their data and collaboration.
Yeah, I think there's really, a lot of our clients are always asking about, there's, compliance requirements that keep parts of the department separate, but the whole thing, that's the death knell of the benefits of, whenever you're thinking about data collaboration and making data accessible. So having options that, are auditable, governed, and to still work within the restrictions of compliance, but and cooked right into the system. I think this is what you'd see, that penumbra effect of like these features stack it up and make it kind of really hard to ignore some of the benefits that you get inside of this. So, well, that's a pretty powerful walkthrough. I know this was reasonably high level. We wanted to talk about some specific use cases, but I think you really recapping those kind of 5 kind of areas we're seeing that Databricks really supports. Financial services architecture, you have that real-time fraud detection, so you're building in that kind of really quick, fraud effort. The ability for compliance with your customer and AML, how you're able to build that with that metadata management. AI-driven tooling, kind of built right on top of that unified data platform with really great ML development. Again, that's kind of Databricks bread and butter. You layer on top the ability to scale very efficiently with a reasonable control of total cost of ownership. And then ultimately getting a compliant and secure way to think about collaboration. I mean, putting those 5 points together, you kind of start to see how powerful these platforms are becoming. So if there's anything else that, anyone diving in wants to understand a little bit more about the architectural, design sitting underneath these, or wants to understand a little bit about assessment of where you are at against some of these features that really come kind of out of the box. One of the things we are so bullish on Databricks is the reason that's a more open system. So you can use parts of it in some ways. It's like you do need to kind of put some level of investment in it. But if you're trying to do just focusing on a machine learning workflow and you have an existing, data ecosystem and other clouds, other ecosystems, it plays very well with a lot of systems. So, happy to always engage and jump in further to dive to the next level. And I will tease that we have some actual technical demos of a lot of these different areas coming up shortly. But I did want to, Colin, thank you for jumping on and sharing your expertise, an overview of kind of these core areas.
Thank you for having us.
Excited to walk through it with
discussion here.
For sure. Awesome.